Welcome to Engage Math, Lesson 2, problem number 4. And we are going to be using our knowledge of setting up proportions and cross-multiplying in real-world examples. So one thing I think really helps when the problem is something that can be solved by a proportion is to say what's going to be in the numerator and denominator. I'm assuming you read each of these questions, so let's start with A. So Michael travels 700 miles. So the two things that we need are miles and we need hours. It doesn't really matter to solve this problem whether you put miles in the numerator or hours in the numerator and vice versa, just so you keep track of it. So I'm going to now put the 700 in the numerator, and that happens 700 miles is the distance he can go every 14 hours. And so then just like that, our question is, how far can he travel in 3 hours? So the 3 has to go in the denominator by the hours, which means what we're looking for is X is the number of miles that Michael travels in 3 hours. And so now we're going to use our cross-multiplying skills. So I'm just going to kind of show you the little bit of the butterfly, but I know you know this from previous lessons. So 14x equals 3 times 700, or 2100. We're going to divide both sides by 14 to get x alone. I do want you to remember that we're challenging you here to not use a calculator. So one thing we can do is we know that 7 goes into 2100 300 times, and 7 goes into 14 2 times. So we can actually divide both the numerator and denominator by 7 and get a much simpler fraction. And then it's much easier to see that the 150 is what 300 over 2 is. And just like that, we know our answer is 150 miles without a calculator. All right, let's look at the Wrigley Field example. So in this case, we know that 1/2 of an inch, or 5/10 of an inch, so I'm going to just put inches over the actual, which is feet. You might have said model over actual or model over real. Doesn't matter as long as you're keeping track of what goes in the numerator and denominator. So 1/2 of an inch, so I'm going to just write that as 5/10, just like they have it. So 5/10 is 8 feet. And what we know is that in this model, it's 23 inches is the distance from the home plate to the right center field wall. And we're looking for how many feet that is in the real world. So when we cross multiply now, we have 1/2 x, and you can make it a fraction if you prefer. So 1/2 x equals 23 times 8. So doing that in your head, or you can do it the old-fashioned way where you do 23 times 8. The way I like to do it is 20 times 8 is 160, 3 times 8 is 24, so 160 plus 24 is 184. And now basically, you could think of that as 1/2 or 0.5, 5/10. I'm going to divide both sides by that. And the easiest way to think of this is to think that you're really multiplying, you're really dividing by 1/2. So you're multiplying by 2 over 1. So 184 divided by 1/2 is the same as 184 times 2 over 1, which is 368. So our answer for this is 368 feet. Okay, so now we have one more problem, the chocolate chip example. And in this case, we have sugar and we have the number of cookies that are made. So I'm going to write it right here as sugar over cookies. So I'm just going to write sugar over cookies. So doesn't matter if you wanted to write cookies over sugar, that would be equally good. So the amount of sugar is 1 2/3. I'm going to change that to an improper fraction of 5/3. So I'm going to basically say 5/3 is the amount of sugar for 12 cookies. So now we need to know if we have 5 cups of sugar, how many cookies can we make? So when we cross multiply, we get 5/3 times x equals 5 times 12, or 60. Now I'm going to change the color just to make sure you see this. I'm going to multiply both sides by 3 over 5. And the reason I'm going to do that is because I can then cancel this out. It's basically 15 over 15. So now you have just plain old x is equal to 3/5 times 60. And off to the side, I'm just going to remind you, 3/5 times 60 means 180 over 5. And we know 180 over 5 is equal to 36, so we have 36 cookies. And we are done. Thanks for joining us here today at Engage Math.